TNA Wrestling crosses that line again as another action-packed episode of Impact airs on AMC. And we're going to talk about it and a lot more on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, which is sponsored by your taste buds' favorite energy drink, Dubby. Do not forget to go on there, HTT Buckle in the checkout and grab yourself a 10% discount. Right, TNA Wrestling Impact AMC week number 2. And it starts how TNA wrestling should start with total non-stop action. Moose against Cedric Alexander, Moose of the System, who will get a new member at the end of the show this evening. Carlos Silva was there as well. But what a great way to kick things off on Impact. You know, what I liked about this is if you recall, Moose took a really serious bump at Genesis on his back on the steel stairs. He really honed in on that this week and throughout the match on on Impact this week. The attention to detail on that was brilliant. How he always remembered that big injury that he had, and understanding that is a weak spot still is a very few do that nowadays, but Moose was brilliant. And Cedric Alexander, what can you say about this man? He is absolutely awesome in there, and these two were giving it their all. However, and a surprise to me, really, um, it was Cedric Alexander that picked up the victory in this match, and wow, it come out of blue. It come really out of the blue. I was expecting Moose to pick up the victory in this, but this goes to show you that TNA can do surprises as well. And Cedric Alexander certainly was that with victory over Moose. A big victory from Cedric Alexander in this one. And wow, interesting. But what a way to start TNA Impact this week. And we follow that with Mike Santana, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, fresh of his victory, of course, at Genesis with Nick Nemeth as the special guest referee. But you know what? He says that he's going to stand here proudly as TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and well, he knows that there's plenty of targets, plenty of people that want that championship match. Nick Nemeth will want that championship match as well, and we'll find out, I suppose, in the coming weeks, because we're only 3 or 4 weeks, I believe, from the next show, the next special that TNA will do, which I believe is going to be No Surrender on February the 13th. That's the next special, and then we follow that in March with Sacrifice. So we got two big ones coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm certain that we'll see who will be next in line for Mike Santana. Now, order four at the back at this point. Mustafa Ali, Jeff Hardy in action later on tonight, and we'll see. I mean, that match should be incredible. And, Ali, he's in confident mood, though, that is for sure. But he says that the Hardys are not goats, they're sheep. Well, good old Ali, good old Ali. We'll see though. We will see as Impact rolls on. Chris Van Vliet was good to see him in the crowd this week. Good old CVV, the podcast extraordinaire. A lot of people like myself look up to Chris. It was great to see him at ringside as we moved to the next contest, which was Indy Hartwell against M by Elegance. The I like the in-ring action here, but there was a lot to do with outside of what happened after the pinfall that was really important here. The Indy actually ended with Indy Hartwell picking up the victory, reversing M by Elegance's pinfall to get the job done. Now, after the match, Heather comes out and attacks Indy Hartwell, but Ash stops that attack. Ash by Elegance stops the attack and steps in and stops it. the Angel Warrior Zaya Brookside and Lei Ying Lee come out and even up, well, assumingly even up the odds to agree, but Ash is with them. And then Ash by Elegance attacks all of those people, Lei Ying Lee and the crew, and then the Elegance brand attacks all three of them. Now, what the key point of this is Ash by Elegance getting physically involved in a match in TNA since her retirement. Now, that is interesting because I wonder if that means she's coming back or she's going to be cleared to action very soon. Maybe their retirement was short-lived with Ash by Elegance. I hope so. I really do hope so because Ash is a tremendous talent. So I'd like to think that this would be the start of her coming back to action in TNA. Let's hope so. They do have a little bit of a backstage as well, all hyping them up the comeback, and they do tease a celebration, a proper celebration outside of the back there, and we'll wonder if that is going to be happening. Maybe it will happen. And Ash will return to the ring at TNA. I really hope it does. She's been such a good asset to TNA wrestling over, since she was in there, and especially after winning the Knockouts Championship, having to have that cut short was was shocking timing. So I'm really hoping Ash becomes back to TNA. Now, feast or fired, people. Now, this was very, very interesting indeed because, well, the hometown man was in there. Ryan Nemeth was in there. Eddie Edwards was in there. AJ Francis was in there. Eric Young was in there. And so was the returning Trey Miguel. The Rascals had left, or so we thought. At least one of them is back in the impact zone, and that is Trey Miguel. And this was a bundle of fun. It was a real good surprise to see Trey Miguel's victory as well. So the opportunities here of the Feast of Fire was World Championship, X Division Championship, International Championship, and fired. Fired. Now, Eric, yeah, I mean, that was a bundle of fun, this one. Now, who won the briefcases? Well, Eric Young, well, he win one? I mean, basically, the hometown man had the briefcase in his hand, but didn't get to the end zone. Eric Young ripped the mask off of the hometown man, stole that briefcase, and got to the end zone or where the outside of the ring or whatever it is to get the job done. So he picks up a briefcase. Top rope drop kick by Eddie Edwards onto AJ Francis, and he grabs a briefcase and gets to the outside. So he's got one. Steve Macklin gets the second brief or the third briefcase, but the second one of the show on there. And then after delivering a suplex to Ryan Nemeth, Trey Miguel got the final briefcase. So next week on TNA, we will find out who is Feast and who is fired, who gets the championship opportunities, and who doesn't. I think it's out of two. Out of the four, I think it's out of two. But we'll wait until next week. We will wait until next week. Now, Santana is backstage again, this time with Nick Nemeth. And Nick Nemeth, of course, he was watching the outcome of that Feast and Fired match. And, well, sorry, Mike Santana was. Nick Nemeth comes in and interrupts him, says the shots are coming. And that someone will challenge Santana for that championship. And then he then teases cashing in. And then does something that you don't do to Steve Macklin, to Mike Santana. You mock his daughter. Just things that you don't do, Nick. You should know this. You're an experienced head. You should know what to do and what not to do. And that is something that you don't do. Anyway, after the brawl, Nick Nemeth enters another room, and that's where BDE, fucking podcaster and social media. That's what I was thinking of. Social media extraordinaire was he was playing video games with his friends. Nick Nemeth unplugs the video game, and that means, well, that basically sets up a match between BDE and Nick Nemeth next week on Impact. That is gonna be BDE is very, very good in that ring, and against someone like Nick Nemeth, who he just gets better with age. That guy, age is like a fine wine. As I say, that's going to be a great match next week. Speaking of someone who's going to be in action next week on TNA, that is the newest knockout, Elena Black, and it's all about her. The first woman to get 1 million views on TNA socials 24 hours after debuting. She's also going to be, well, she wants a knockouts championship, but she says whoever is her opponent next week, it kind of doesn't matter because she is going to be number one. Hard to disagree. So I told you, blue chip pickup from TNA, in my opinion, Elena Black, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in action next week on the Impact Zone. Now, Daria Ray was backstage watching this with Santina Marella, and Ray was very confident in her ability or Elena Black's ability and sees her as the future of the Knockouts division. As Marella's like, time will tell. And that's when Ariana Grace, Santino's daughter, comes in and she's apologizing for causing so much trouble over the couple of weeks. She hugs him. There's a little bit of an indecision with Marella, and then he finally hugs her and accepts the apology. I don't buy it. I honestly don't buy it right now, Santino. And I know it's family, but I'm not so sure that you should be accepting the apology just yet, my friend. But we shall see. Could be wrong. We will see. We will see. Now, the main event, well, yeah, the main event, there's a segment after, but the main event of TNA Impact was Jeff Hardy versus Mustafa Ali. Oh, this was the match of the night. I said a Genesis that the Hardy's match was probably the weakest one of the night, but it wasn't because it was bad. It was just because all the others were incredible. But this looked, this was outstanding. It was the highlight of the night for me. I really enjoyed this match. The twist of fate into the ringside steel steps looked brutal, absolutely brutal. But with Ali, what I would say is you could tell that Ali was, I'm not saying carrying the match, but he was doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this. And it just goes to show just how good Mustafa Ali actually is. And on top of that, would you really be surprised if Mustafa Ali was the person that dethroned Steve Macklin, Mike Santana? It's early, people, okay? And I'm not well. Would you be surprised if he was the one that dethroned Mike Santana? Mustafa Ali? I wouldn't be. I think Mustafa Ali is a world championship in waiting. I was surprised that he wasn't in Feast or Fired, to be quite honest with you. However, as much as this was a good match and as much as he did do the capitalizing, he did get distracted by Elijah with then Jeff Hardy hitting the twist of fate and the Swanton bomb to finish things off. However, obviously Jeff was there with Matt as well. They cut backstage at this point, and there is the righteous Vincent and Dutch. And again, the sort of promo they delivered was kind of suggesting that that wasn't over between the two teams. We've still got Elijah and Ali carrying on, and now it looks like we've got the Righteous and the Hardys carrying on. I got a feeling ultimate deletion or something is needed here. That's what we kind of need. The Hardy compound needs to get involved again on TNA. That's my opinion. Anyway, right. Let's roll on. What have we got next week on TNA? Well, we've just said Nick Nemeth, BDE. Elijah will go one-on-one with Order 4's Jason Hotch. We'll have the in-ring debut, so to speak, of Elena Black. Obviously, she was there as Cora Jade in the past when she was in the NXT. The Feast of Fired briefcases will be revealed, and a no holds barred match between AJ Francis and Rich Swann, which you can obviously see on AMC and, of course, TNA Plus over here in the UK. Get it downloaded, get it subscribed, $9.99 a month. Gives you the lot, Impact, the special shows, the pay-per-views, and the archives. Now it's the system. They are resetting the system on TNA. We're going to get a new member of the system, JDC. Thanks to fans, system cohorts, for everything that they've done. But he wanted to get straight to the point. And the new member of the system, Bear Bronson. What a great choice for a pick there. The system nails it on the head with Bear Bronson. However, Brian Myers looks a little bit perplexed by the announcement, as Bronson is his protege. Bronson enters the ring and hugs Myers. The rest of the system welcome Bronson into the fold. JDC hugs Eddie Edwards, who is then low blowed by Eddie Edwards. And as Moose reacts, he is taken out by Bear Bronson. So now Moose has been discommunicated from the system as well. But then out comes Cedric Alexander with a steel chair to even the odds. But no, Cedric Alexander destroys Moose with the steel chair. Now, like I said, Eddie Edwards did state that Moose had been replaced. Oh, sorry, that Moose had. Well, Eddie Edwards. I had said sorry that Moose had been discommunicated from the system, and that was apparent because Eddie Edwards said the system had replaced not one but two, and Cedric Alexander joins the system along with Bear Bronson. And they have undergone a violent reset in TNA, and the system may well be stronger than ever. That is going to be so interesting. Bear Bronson and Cedric Alexander join the system on TNA Wrestling. That now, last week I wasn't particularly impressed with TNA's the first show, but it was the first show, right? You get that out of the way, you have a great Genesis, and you follow it up with an absolutely incredible TNA Impact. That's what we're talking about. That's the TNA that I know and love. Make sure you watch it next week on AMC. Make sure you watch it next week on TNA Plus. And make sure you get your taste buds favorite energy drink in Dubby. Make sure you go and check out and use HTT Buckle at the checkout for a 10% discount on your Dubby. Also follow us, HTT Buckle, everywhere on social media. We'll be back with, we've got so much going on. We got back with loads going on over the weekend and into next week. So until then, everybody, cross the line and stay safe.